Saber versus pistol versus carbine. I recently came across some old cavalry journals. These ones are from 1906, and there seems to be a lot of them, so I'll be reading a lot of them. And I will be covering some of the highlights from those in shorts and other videos. However, I thought it would be kind of interesting to just read those all out loud. They're from 1906, they're in the public domain. Probably whoever's watching this, I doubt that this video will do numbers, but if it reaches 500 views, that'll probably double the people alive today who have even read this media. So I want to read them to you. I'll probably have some at least partially relevant pictures up, but it's going to be me doing audio stuff because you don't want to look at my face the whole time. And I thought that this pistol versus carbine versus saber one was the most interesting one that I read in this first issue, so hope you enjoy listening. Saber versus Revolver versus Carbine by Lieutenant Colonel James Parker of the 13th Cavalry. During the month of October 1905 at Fort Riley, Kansas, a number of experiments were made in field firing. Among these were, first, a test of the comparative execution of pistol and saber, advancing mounted at full speed in a straight course lined by a number of silhouette targets. Second, a test of the comparative accuracy of the pistol and carbine, circling the regulation riding track at a gallop, firing at silhouette targets. These tests, while not conclusive to any great degree, developed some facts which are of much interest. They were witnessed by all the officers of the cavalry subpost. The test of the saber versus revolver was conducted by Captain W. H. McCornack, 9th Cavalry. He selected 10 men of average proficiency with the pistol and saber. These men had 3 preliminary drills of 2 hours each. The horses were average. The course was 117 yards long, which each trooper had to pass over at a rate of 16 miles an hour. At each 20 yards along the course, there was a silhouette of a soldier standing on the right side of the track, with another on the left side, the interval between the silhouettes being 3 1/2 yards. The silhouettes faced toward the starting point. That is, there were 10 silhouettes of infantry ranged in column of 2s, the interval between men being 3 1/2 yards, the distance between 2s being 20 yards. Down through the center of this column, a trooper with a pistol and saber rode at a charging pace. See cut. The 10 men made 4 runs each, with a pistol, in 2 runs firing to the right and in 2 runs firing to the left. They also made 4 runs with the saber, on the first run, cutting to the right, on the second run, thrusting to the right, on the third run, cutting to the left, and on the 4th run, thrusting to the left. The results are shown in the following table. An examination of this table indicates the following facts. There were 34% more hits with the saber than the pistol. The percentage of hits with the saber was much larger than with the revolver, whether the saber was used to cut or to thrust, whether the target was on the left or on the right. It should be noted that the troopers in this test had the alternative, if they desired, of placing the pistol against the target before discharging. Why more hits were not made with the pistol can be explained only by the fact that a horse at a run is a mighty unstable platform from which to shoot, and it is much easier under such circumstances to hit an object with a saber than with a pistol. For proof of which I recommend that any doubters practice this experiment next year. It only requires a few cartridges. It will be noticed that the time of the run averaged less with the pistol. This is due to the difficulty of controlling the horse while shooting. It is impossible to reproduce on a drill field the conditions of war. If it is necessary to solve the question of saber versus pistol, we must work it out by actual war experience, either in the past or in the future. This fact, however, would seem to be fairly well indicated by this experiment, that at the moment of collision between 2 masses of cavalry, the saber is a surer weapon as far as hits are concerned than the pistol. The second test of pistol versus carbine was conducted by Captain Lanning Parsons, 9th Cavalry. He selected 10 ordinary pistol shots with average horses and put them through a short course in using the carbine mounted. Captain Parsons found that while in firing to the left, the carbine can be used with the best effect by aiming from the right shoulder. It is not possible to aim from the left shoulder in order to fire to the right. Supporting the butt of the weapon on the hip was tried and found very handy, but the men invariably fired too high. This defect, however, might have been cured by preliminary dismounted practice. The best results in firing to the right were obtained by holding the carbine in the right hand, just as a pistol is held, and extending the arm. The test was as follows. The target selected of standing figures arranged as Figure 1, Plate 28, firing regulations, the target's 10 yards from the track, 5 circlings of the track at a gallop for each soldier, firing 5 shots in each of the 5 directions, namely, to the right front, left front, and right rear, or 25 shots in total. The results of these tests are shown on the following table. This table shows, first, the total score of the carbine was 16% greater than the total score of the pistol. This superiority was even greater and more uniform during the preliminary instruction. Second, the carbine score was 57% better than the pistol score, shooting to the left and left front. Third, the carbine score was practically equal to the pistol score, shooting to the right. The result of this test, like that of the first, was a surprise. This test raises the question, first, to how great a degree the carbine can replace the pistol. Second, whether the carbine is not an effective reserve of the pistol to be used when the pistol has been emptied. Third, whether carbine practice mounted should not be taught in order to take advantage of its possibilities. In considering these questions, we must remember that, while the pistol is more handy than the carbine and can be discharged more rapidly, it cannot be reloaded with the same facility as a carbine. Our new carbine, using the clip, can be reloaded almost by a single movement. The Colt .38 revolver has to be reloaded by laboriously inserting each cartridge one by one. The Luger pistol is unsafe in the hands of an ordinary soldier. One great difficulty about our revolver is the fact that its shots are exhausted immediately and it is practically impossible to reload in action. The rider was, on one occasion, for what seemed to be 3 or more minutes, riding through a body of Philippine insurgents drawn up in a column along the road. In the first 20 seconds, all his 5 revolver cartridges were fired. After that, he could only rely on the moral effect of pointing at each man an empty pistol. To try to reload would have been fatal. The 2 men who accompanied him were in the same fix, and neither one thought of drawing his carbine, for neither had been instructed to make use of the carbine when the pistol was empty. It seems strange that this use of the carbine in place of or as a reserve to the pistol has not been more discussed by those who favor the use of projectile weapons from horseback. For it must be remembered that in the magazine carbine we have now a weapon which, for use from the saddle, is vastly superior to the old single loader. Let us suppose that projectile weapons were desirable in a charge, and that 2 detachments of cavalry, equal in other respects, charge each other in line of foragers, one armed with the pistol, the other with the carbine. In what degree would the pistol have the advantage? Let it be remembered that the men with the carbine would naturally shoot to the left front, and would therefore, if these experiments have any value, have a large advantage over the pistol. Also, that they could reload more easily. Also, that the appearance at close quarters of a muzzle of a carbine is decidedly more formidable than that of the muzzle of a pistol. And, further, that the wound of the carbine is more deadly to man and beast. The experiments may afford some matter of thought to those who favor the use of the pistol when mounted to the exclusion of all other weapons. As for me, I believe the great utility of cavalry lies in its readiness for any emergency. In my opinion, to each of these weapons, carbine, saber, and pistol, there are emergencies for which it is best suited. The weight of the saber or pistol is inconsiderable. It is not too much to ask of a soldier to be able to use effectively, mounted, all of these 3 weapons. As a little bit of context, people had been using pistols from horseback for 300 years by that point, so it was relatively common practice. It's really interesting that they hadn't done a test like this before. And the results of the pistol versus saber seem to imply that the saber is the better weapon. However, and I find this hilarious, in the next issue of this cavalry journal from the next quarter, there was an article talking in response to this, and the person said, a silhouette target can't block or dodge a weapon, and how many of those saber hits would have been blocked or dodged? Meanwhile, it's very difficult to do those sorts of things against a bullet. They're pretty much saying that, yeah, they were hit more, but bullets would still probably do better. Since those are from 1906, looking at the progression in history, we didn't decide to just go with the saber, and eventually we decided to not shoot things from horseback for too much longer. And like I said at the beginning, this is a very different type of content for me, and it'd be pretty interesting to continue.